Good evening, everyone. Sorry, we're running a few minutes late. Woo, okay, that's working. We do have, before we start our special meeting, we do have a Board of Finance meeting that we need to conduct this evening. We'll go ahead and call that to order. And we need to do a quick review of Policy 3160, which is establishing officers and our meeting date.
Basically, the policy board, it just dictates the fact that this Board of Finance meeting must occur at this time of the year. And so it has to happen before the end of January. So that's what the policy is stipulating. And then also at this meeting, there has to be an election of a president and a secretary of the Board of Finance. So that would be your first course of action this evening.
Okay, so we'll open that up for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Christina Gilkey as president.
Any other nominations? All right, all in favor? 6-0. And secretary, we need to, normally we just nominate the secretary of the board as well, so I'll go ahead and nominate Kevin Satterley as secretary of the Board of Finance. Is there a second? I'll second. Thank you, Mrs. Kraft. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. Oh, somebody want to say that first nomination? Thank you, Jerry. Sorry.
I didn't catch that either.
Thanks for keeping us in check, Renee. All right. And then we have a review of our investment policy.
And again, board, at this meeting, it's important that our chief financial officer does a quick review of our investments, and so I'll have Dr. Dykle do that at this time.
Good evening. Indiana Code 5-13-7-7 requires that the investment officer shall annually make a written report that summarizes the school corporation's investments during the previous year. A copy of the report is up on the screen, and you also have it in your file. As you can see, in 2012, calendar year 2012, we received $161,081.34 from your community bank. From New Washington State Bank, we had $47.63, so we actually had a combined $161,128.97 for the year, which basically goes to the general fund. Also, you can see how much money we were getting. The interest rate has dropped from 1.28% to 0.75% for the last half of last year, last 6 months. And you also can see some historical data. Going back to 2007, we actually received $569,000 in interest, which was great for our general fund. Then you can see it dropping because it went from a high of 5.41% in 07 to 2.7% in 8, and we dropped to $319,000. Then it went to a high of 0.71. We got $83,603, and then in 10 it went up to 1.28. So we received $164,000. In 11, it was 1.28. We received $166,607, and now in 12, we received $161,128.97. So right now in 13, I expect us to be closer to the 0.75% unless the economy really turns around. So we'll probably be back around the $83,000 for 13. So just to let you know.
You don't have any better news for us than that, Dr. Dykle.
No, I'm just always doom and gloom.
Any questions on the investment report? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so then we'll call, is there a motion to adjourn the Board of Finance meeting? Thank you, Trace. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. White. All in favor of adjournment? All right. We'll close out that part of our meeting. We thank you for your patience. Renee, if you would show all board members present except for Mr. Satterley. And at this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
Need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. White. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pavey. Any questions? All right. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda as presented? Thank you. Do we have any public comments? All right. Next, we have our consent agenda. Need a motion to approve items 1 through 5. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Teresa. Any discussion? All in favor? All right. Thank you. Next, we have our gifts to buildings.
I'll read that in Mr. Satterley's absence.
Thank you, Mrs. Kraft.
Yes. Charlestown High School received from the Indianapolis Colts Foundation $2,000 for the athletics department, and Parkwood Elementary from PNC Bank $500 for bank expenses. Thank you, PNC Bank and Indianapolis Colts Foundation.
All right. Is there a motion to approve gifts?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Pavey. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. White. All in favor of approving gifts to buildings? All right, thank you. And I believe that $2,000 was the result of our football coach being named one of the coaches of the week. Was that right?
That's exactly it. And if you recall, Board, the Colts had a representative come down and made a presentation to Coach and a lot of other people in the gym that day, and it was a great honor. It's not something that happens around the state very often to many coaches, and very deserving, obviously. But that's the $2,000 that they give to the athletic department on his behalf. So that's a nice gesture by the Colts.
And that was on behalf of Coach Hawkins, correct?
Coach Hawkins, yes.
All right, good deal. Next we have action items, cancellation of some outstanding checks.
I'll let Dr. Dykle make that presentation.
Now I have some good news for you.
$1 million, right?
No, not I wish. Every year we come before the board and we ask permission to remove outstanding checks that are 2 years old or older, and this is what we're doing today. You have in your possession checks from accounts payable and payroll checks that total $6,369. You have it broken out by fund. $5,101 of it is the general fund, and then we have food service, special ed, co-op, and liabilities account. What we'd like to do is to wipe these off the record, reissue them to our employees if they're over $25. I've done that in the past. I think that's only fair to our employees. If it's an accounts payable check, they might have lost it. If it's a payroll check, they might have lost it. $25 is a good, nice number, and we only have a few that are below $25. So that's what I'd like to do.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any discussion or questions for Dr. Dykle? All in favor? All right.
Okay,
Thank you. Next we have overnight travel for Brett Clark.
Board, our new Director of Technology, Brett Clark, prior to coming to our school corporation, worked in the Evansville-Vanderburg School Corporation as an e-learning coach. And prior to him joining us, he had already been asked to make a presentation at a national conference in Philadelphia. And the Evansville-Vanderburg school system authorized him to go, along with some other individuals, and to pay for his trip there. And so, Board tonight, what we're asking is the ability for you to approve us being able to reimburse the Evansville-Vanderburg School Corporation the cost of the plane ticket, which is $385. There are some other costs incurred to go, including meals and so on. It should not be anything greater. The total cost or reimbursement should be no more than, I think, $800 and some dollars is the maximum request. That would include the reimbursement to the school, Evansville-Vanderburg, for the airplane tickets. We did look at the possibility of transferring the ticket to Louisville, but the cost to do that was prohibitive. So Mr. Clark will drive back to Evansville and fly out of Evansville just to save the cost. It was much greater to fly out of Louisville. We were hoping the cost would be maybe $120, but it was far greater than that. So I'm asking permission tonight, Board, for you to give approval to reimburse Mr. Clark and support his trip. And the hope would be when he comes back, he'll also be able to make a presentation to this board in regard to his experience in Philadelphia.
Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Mr. White. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any discussion?
Well, go ahead, Tony.
Mr. Hall?
I would just like to ask that the next time, or when people present stuff to us, that it's pretty clear, and I understand it now, but the first request that we got, it was kind of thrown out there, and it didn't make a lot of sense. But once we've connected the dots and dotted and did all this stuff, it makes sense now.
And I'll take responsibility for that, Board. We were trying to put this together relatively quickly, and in the future we'll do a better job of making sure that's more clear. So I'll take responsibility for that. And it's a good point.
Well, Mr. Clark, I understand this looks like a pretty exciting opportunity. I've heard great things about it, so we're excited for you and represent us well. Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? All right. And we don't have any discussion items tonight, correct? Okay. Next we have board reports / requests. And I did give Mr. Hall and Ms. Perkins a heads up that we would like to give them an opportunity to take a couple minutes each and just tell us about the ISBA conference they attended. So, Tony, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. January 11th, Teresa and I went to Indianapolis for the Winter Board Academy. School board members from across the state of Indiana were present. Superintendents were present. Assistant superintendents were present. I got to meet a lot of old friends. My high school government teacher, Nayland Clark, is now the superintendent at South Harrison School. So I got to see Mr. Clark again. I got to meet a school board member from North Harrison. I spoke with Bill Wilson, the president of Clarksville School Board. It was a great time. One of the keynote speaker, Glenda Ritz, our new superintendent of public instruction, spoke. I think it's very, very, very encouraging, the message she has for the direction that she wants to take education in the state. And I'm real excited about her and about the movement that she's going to bring to Indiana. A couple other little things I went to was Frank Bush spoke on budgeting, revenue, and expenditures. And as a school board member, I think we can never know enough about how to spend tax dollars. And there's a lot of gray area. You think you know enough, but you always find out something new. And it's just there's a lot of good information. And in the book, and I can share with other board members, but Teresa and I brought back our cheat sheet. This has got the notes in here from all the breakout sessions that we went to and the ones that we missed. Another session I went to was understanding student discipline, the board members' role in developing student discipline rules and guidelines. And there's some really neat stuff there, and I'm excited to share that with the board at a later time. But I enjoyed it. I can't wait to do something like that again, and I think the more you get out and talk, you realize that everybody around the state's got the same problems, the same concerns, the same benefits, the same good things, the same bad things in their area of the state as we do. So I had a great time.
Thank you. Teresa?
Yes. Tony and I tried to go to different breakout sessions, but before I talk about the ones that I went to, again, the networking opportunities are great. I got to see a lot of old faces that I knew from the School Boards Association from my former life as assistant superintendent. And it was great to see them and talk to them and find out the things that our new superintendent, state superintendent, her vision for the state of Indiana. She's got some pretty major changes on board for us, and she shared some of those with us. She's certainly not a fan of iRead. She told us that pretty clearly. And she talked about having outreach coordinators around the state that I think she said she's going to have 9 of those that are going to work directly, and they're going to work out of the education centers. So I like that piece of it. We tried to go to different sessions, but we ended up in the same budgeting, basics of budgeting, because the other sessions weren't very exciting that time. And it was Frank Bush, and if you've met Frank Bush, you know he's pretty much on top of everything he does. So, and it was very good. Then I went to the superintendent evaluation session because I've never been involved in that. Been involved in lots of evaluations, but never sitting on this side of the board table. So I went to that, and one thing I did discover is that while we're in good shape as far as knowing what's coming up. Dr. Mellon shared with me the evaluation process that I'm going to be working with him, and all of us will be. There were other school corporations that looked like, light in the deer's eyes. They had no idea. They were asking questions like, what rubric? We don't know what you're talking about. What date? What do you mean we have to turn something in? So I left that session feeling very good. And then finally, I went to the Engaging Lawmakers in Public Education because as part of our strategic planning session, that's one of the things that I think we're going to come out with, one of our action steps, and I got some good information on that. So thank you very much for allowing me to attend.
Any questions for Teresa or Tony?
And this is in a digital copy too. I can get that. I didn't actually sign up for it, but I can. If anybody wants it.
I heard it was one of the largest turnouts ever for a winter academy, and I'm sure that's because of the legislative change for board elections to be in the fall instead of the spring. They
asked for a show of hands of how many folks were there that were brand new to the board. It was overwhelming, wasn't it?
80%.
80%. Yeah. Wow. And then some people that spoke on that panel, they'd been a board member for 20 years. So, but there's a lot of newbies.
I'm glad you all went, and I appreciate you sharing your information with us. I always get something from those conferences, always. There's something you think you know, and you go and you're like, well, darn, I didn't know that, or I didn't understand that. So it's good for us to go. I'm looking forward to all of us being able to go together in the fall conference. Thank you for sharing.
Is that in Seymour?
No, it'll be back in Indianapolis.
Oh.
It's the big one.
Oh, I'm thinking of the regional. Okay.
I did want to share real quickly, too, on Friday, Clarksville had a representative, New Albany Floyd had a representative, West Clark had a representative, and then I represented Greater Clark. We met with a couple of our local legislators. Senator Grooms attended, and Representative Claire attended. And we had Rusty Settles was kind enough to come in and share his perspective of a school resource officer. I don't know if you all know it, but the Attorney General has pretty much sent down a mandate that he wants the legislature to fund SROs moving forward in our schools. And so we thought it would be good. Rusty actually came and volunteered to do this once he heard we were going to be meeting with them. And he did an excellent job of explaining to them about his role in the schools and what he does on a daily basis, and how short-handed he is on occasions, And I think it was very good for the legislators to hear from an SRO. It's a lot more powerful than just hearing it, from a board member. So thank you, Rusty, for doing that. They were talking about the the piece of the pie and how that'll look if they divvy out a little bit to each school corporation. And so that will be decided in the budget session this spring. Also, we talked a little bit about if there's going to be any funding for professional development, because they took that away from us. And we were told that yes, there will be. It'll be added into the funding formula.
That's great.
And something else will be taken out.
Yeah.
Right.
So, food for thought. I don't know how much that'll equate to, but it's not really professional development money as it was, but it's supposed to be getting more money in the funding formula. So hopefully that'll help. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on that. We talked a little bit about TIF monies and UEZ monies, and we had some discussions on those things. So as always, it was a good meeting. And our two legislators actually said to us, we want to meet with you all again real soon. So we'll probably be meeting again in March. So there's that update. Anybody else have a report or
Something I forgot to add that Glenda Ritz mentioned was that she is pretty positive that she's going to start the PLA groups up again, Principals Leadership Academy. I didn't know if you all had heard that, but she's looking for another class real soon, so that's good news.
any other report?
Speaking of Glenda Ritz, I got to go to the inauguration, and it was delightful. She is delightful. And so I bought this back for everyone to look at. And that's the program, a copy of the program. It was in the state capitol, Rotunda, and she made a very nice speech. But the surprising thing to me, and the neat thing, was the singing of the national anthem was done by the Golden Singers from Broderville High School, and that's my high school. And was I proud? I thought, gee, that's great, yes. Because I was a Golden Singer 100 years ago. Yes, so anyway, it was delightful. She has a lot of really good ideas, and I sat next to three legislators, and I twisted their arm the entire time I was there. And they expected that. And I said, I'll be back, because I'm the legislative person. And they said, that's what we were afraid of. So that's just kind of how it is. Okay, that's my report. Thank you very much.
We wouldn't expect anything less of you, Mrs.
Really?
Kraft. Jerry, do you have anything?
No, I don't, thank you.
Mark?
No.
All right. We'll move on to strategic planning update.
Well, Board, we have another Strategic Planning Committee meeting coming up Thursday. Just want to give you a quick recap of where we are in regard to goals and in one of our subcommittee's cases, action steps. So, again, in facilities and technology, three major goals that I think at this point the committee is sold on, and that is by August 2014, equitable access to technology will be available to 100% of the district stakeholders so that education is enhanced and learning is facilitated. Again, a big role that Mr. Clark will play is how do we get that accomplished as we're looking at one-to-one type of initiatives and so on. Goal number 2 is by the start of the 2018-19 school year, all facilities will provide and promote a safe and quality environment for the education of students as defined by the long-range facilities plan. So, again, an action step probably will be that a facilities plan needs to be developed for all of our buildings, and how are we going to pay for that over time. But we really need to know exactly the state of all of our buildings prior to developing that kind of a plan. The third goal is by the end of each school year, Greater Clark County Schools will complete a district-wide evaluation and revision of current technology and facilities. So it's critical that a needs assessment is done on an annual basis to make sure that we have our buildings are in the best shape they can possibly be in, and obviously enhancing them to be able to accommodate future technology needs. So that's the three major goals. The group has begun talking about action steps, but we didn't want to put those out yet. The hope would be when we come back in February, we'll have the action steps finalized, and maybe even more by that time. Then in finance, they're overachievers. in finance, led by Dr. Deichel. And you can see, yes, our scoop. They've accomplished a great deal. So they have both the goals and the action steps listed. And again, goal number 1, Greater Clark County Schools will have the state recommended 8% cash balance in our general fund. And they have action steps that they've identified to move to that end. One is really review of all staffing and benefits to improve efficiencies. And board, you are aware of the fact that we've been working very hard on that, and we'll be bringing more information to you in the very near future. Conduct a study of the financial impact of outsourcing food service, transportation, and custodial maintenance. This is not to say that we are planning to outsource. This is the fact that we need to at least look at, are there any financial benefits to do that? Obviously, you need to be sensitive to your staff in that regard, and there are a lot of different models out there in regard to outsourcing. So this is not to say that the committee is recommending we outsource. We need to do a very thorough study so we understand what the financial impact of outsourcing would be. Conduct a capacity study of schools to look at smaller, inefficient schools. We need to be able to look across our entire school system and look at populations, and is there going to be a need to redistrict? Do we need to begin looking at the possible elimination of schools? There are all kinds of things that we, again, not to say we're looking to shut down schools, but we need to be studying what are the pros and cons of that moving forward. 4, position the district to retain and attract students to increase enrollment. Money, as you know, comes in the form of students. So we not only need to retain them, but we need to attract them as well to increase enrollment and therefore get more state dollars. The second goal is that we will have a 5% cash balance based on the total budget in the district's rainy day fund. Again, I just asked Dr. Deichel today to give me an idea ending 2012. Where are we in terms of cash balances? In our general fund, I believe was about $1.4 million. In our rainy day fund was $1.6 million. Well, both of those numbers fall very short of our goals. So you can see again similar goals or action steps in Goal 2 that you saw in action steps in Goal 1. Goal 3, Greater Clark County Schools will be fiscally mindful stewards of all public funds as evidenced in local and state audits while maintaining high student achievement. The whole idea here is we always want to keep our eye on the ball, and that is we're doing the very best we can to make sure we're providing students with a great education, but we also have to be respectful of the fact that we're dealing with both local and state dollars, and we have to be very smart with how we're spending those dollars and make sure that from an auditing perspective, every 2 years when the state comes in, that we are showing and that we're managing the dollars appropriately. And you can see some of the action steps, show the public what we're doing using the data dashboards, show how the state reductions have affected programs over a period of the past 3 years and how we are coping, identify what we need to have in a quality educational system, strive to have a perfect audit with no exceptions, change people's attitude that schools are flush with cash. Some people have a feeling that schools have all the money. That's not realistic. Maximize vocational, academic honors, and technical honors money. And we'll be bringing more details forward there. Goal 4, Greater Clark County Schools is a significant partner as an economic driver in Clark County and will enhance partnerships with businesses, industry, and local taxing entities in the share of tax increment funding, those TIF dollars. So we're going to research possible projects and partnerships to improve security through technology. We think that local redevelopment commissions, I think, would be interested in helping to provide safer buildings and security. TIP dollars have to be used as a capital project, and technology is the key way that's being done around the state. 2, aggressively pursue TIF money by attending and presenting to local redevelopment commissions, talking to them about the academic development capabilities of school systems, that we are a key player in that. Educate the community and employees of potential partnerships, and look at developing other partnerships with communities and the community and businesses. And then 5, Greater Clark County Schools will advocate for realistic state funding for all educational programs. All of us sitting here, all of us in this room, are advocates of public education. The opportunities that you had to go to the Winter Academy were outstanding, to network, to talk to legislators, Mrs. Kraft, going to the inauguration, being able again to network, let people know how important those public dollars are. All of us here have to be advocates every time we get an opportunity to talk to our state legislators and to the public about funding our schools, because if we don't do the talking, there's very little chance that the dollars will increase coming from the state. So you can see that we're going to bring Greater Clark County Schools teachers and administrators as advocates together to look at funding. We want to educate our constituents about funding, bring area legislators together, which I know you've already done that, not only through your meeting last Friday, but through future joint board meetings, and expand the presentation by inviting other schools to share their data with legislators. So again, it's an interesting world we live in right now, because in K-12 education, it's very competitive from a public perspective. Public K-12 education is more competitive than it's ever been, but yet what we must remind ourselves of is that the way to have maximum influence with the state, with legislators, is by working together and not working against one another. So it's an interesting dynamic that we're facing. In terms of public relations and marketing, these are goals that are finalized by the group. Greater Clark County Schools will improve its community perception to increase student population by 1% each year. Greater Clark County Schools will expand and enhance partnerships with families to retain current enrollment. Those parent partnerships are vital. And then by 2018, our schools will formalize partnerships with business and community organizations. Again, it's all part of making sure people know how much we care about our kids, that we're moving forward for their benefit, and we're focusing on all those positive things. We need people's help because we can't do it by ourselves. And I think in the last area, these goals are finalized that our graduation rate will meet or exceed the state goal and ensure that all of our graduates are accepted to post-secondary education or employment opportunities. Number 2, we'll achieve and maintain an A rating as defined by the Indiana Department of Education. So as long as that's there, that based upon that growth model, whatever they want to throw at us, we want to be at the top of the scale, no matter whether it's a letter grade or whatever scale they're going to use. Number 3, all certified staff will be rated as effective or highly effective in our district's evaluation system. And number 4, we will reflect a diverse faculty that recognizes and respects the broad cultural differences of students. And as you know, Board, it is something we're going to have to be very strategic in trying to increase our minority faculty presence in our school corporation, because it's far less than our student population. So in order to make that happen, we have to do more than just talk about it. We have to really go out and find individuals who are willing to come to Greater Clark and see the great benefits that they can provide for our school corporation. So I'm glad that that's been recognized as a goal. So that gives you a quick update, and we'll keep, next month we should have even a more comprehensive, detailed report for you. Any questions?
Dr. Mellon, Superintendent Ritz actually encouraged board members at our meeting to work with their cities and towns to increase the technology in the community, because as we go online to take assessments, if our community already has full Wi-Fi and everything, then it's going to make it easier on the school. So that goes right along with what she's pushing too. So
great, that's good news.
Is there any particular reason that 2018 or 18? These are all great, and everything you have to me sounds wonderful. Why not 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Why 2000? Why 18-19 school year?
Well, I think that what we were trying to make sure is that the goals, these are goals that we're striving for within a 5-year period of time, is what we said. So that if we say that by a certain date it'll be done, then we need to make sure we accomplish that goal by that date. So Was it somewhat conservative, perhaps? Maybe. But we want to make sure that we reach the goal. Obviously, we're going to be very aggressive. And wouldn't it be great where it says by 2018, and we can come back to you in 2016 or 17 and say, look at what we've accomplished. So our subcommittees and working together in several meetings, we just wanted to be very sort of practical and realistic in terms of these goals. And but what we're trying to strive for is we're trying to get maximum impact in the shortest time possible to achieve these things.
And within those action steps, I can foresee us having benchmarks within those action steps. And it won't be just a bang, 2018 we're there. We will see growth through those action steps, and whoever is the driver of that, responsibility for that.
Yeah.
This also, Tony, won't be, we're not going to do all this work and then just stick it on a shelf. Every 6 months, we're going to evaluate where we are in getting to our goals and, redefine and rework and take a step back and reformulate to ensure that we get there. Mm-hmm. Most strategic plans that I've went to conferences about, they're 3 to 5 year strategic plans. So, but that doesn't mean you put it on a shelf for 5 years. It means you keep watch. Every 6 months you reevaluate where you are to ensure that you actually reach your goals.
One of our philosophies that I shared with our facilitators, and I really appreciate, our administrative team, central office administrative team, because they've been facilitating the process. But one of the things I said to them as an expectation was when we talk about action steps, let's focus on 3 to 5 action steps per goal that we can really make a difference in a year's time. So even though the goal may be several years out, what are the specific action steps that we can really tackle, 3 to 5, in each of these goal areas to make a difference within a 12-month period? So the action steps, when the action steps are developed, my hope will be that you will see that initial phase will be within the next 12 months. We're going to do this, this, and this within the next 12 months. And in the other districts where I've done this, and I appreciate Mrs. Gilkey for saying it, is this is a document it's always on a black and white piece of paper. We don't spend a lot of money to make it look pretty. We get it out there electronically for people to see. We hold ourselves accountable twice a year. We'll put it up in front. We'll say, look, hey, we're proud of what we've accomplished here. Congratulations, let's celebrate. But you know what? We fell short here. This is why we fell short. This is what we're going to do differently. We take responsibility if we're not able to accomplish something. So people will know that this is a very real thing. And as I said, if on an annual basis we're able to move faster to get things accomplished, great. But I think success breeds success, and we want to make sure that those goals are attainable. They're called SMART goals. We call them SMART goals, and we want them to be really realistic and attainable so that breeds success. People can feel good about it, and then hopefully that will continue to spur the movement that we need to keep moving forward. So it's a good question, though, about I hope we can accomplish these things sooner than some of the years indicated. Good question.
That helps.
I also appreciate our board's presence on subcommittees. We're allowed to have 3 board members on subcommittees, and Teresa and Mark and Christina, thank you so much for participating and be part of it, because again, we're a team in this, trying to make sure we're doing good things for kids. So thank you for.
Could we just look at that 7:00 meeting?
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. In the future, we'll look at the time.
A little early for me.
Have coffee.
I think we should add 5-hour energy to the table. Yeah. Any other comments, discussion, questions on strategic plan? Okay. We have a policy review on our kindergarten admission.
Mrs. Lewis.
Talk a little bit about the babies. Actually, we won't talk about the babies. We'll talk about timing. In the kindergarten admission, because of the balanced calendar implementation, we had some dates on when things were due, and rather than have specific dates certain in this policy, we are going to be bringing to you for first reading next month the revisions that are set out in yellow highlights. And we're going to go to things like the questionnaire for early kindergarten entrance being due the second Friday in May rather than specifically on May 15th. Likewise, interviews and assessments will be conducted at the administration building on or before the last Friday in May rather than May 22nd through June 8th. So we're going to try to make it a little more user-friendly, and everybody can then take a calendar as it comes up and know when things are due. So we're not changing any of the content, it's just when things are due and how we're wording that. This is just merely discussion, no actions needed, but if you had any questions about this policy that we'll be presenting for first reading, now is your chance to ask those questions.
Cindy, did you realize that we have free kindergarten at Greater Clark? I was riding down 65 the other day, and there's this great big sign that says Greater Clark has free kindergarten. I thought that was kind of neat.
Isn't that great?
So.
I just love that billboard in that school. You almost want to pull over to the side of the road and sit there and read through it. It's pretty exciting.
And you know, today in our administrative team meeting, we talked about this postcard. We've had a campaign getting postcards out to people, reminding them of the ability to enroll in kindergarten and so on. We've had 127 students already enrolled for kindergarten online for next year. So just due to that campaign, 127 students have already registered, and we're not even at the end of January. So what the postcard, hopefully the billboard, hopefully all these things are, you know, getting the word out there, and that's exciting.
For those of us who are visual learners, I have this. See, this is a group of thank you notes that I got from kindergarten. See how beautifully it's printed in colors?
Very.
That's Greater Clark Kindergarten, people. That's how we do things. Isn't that well done? I'm very proud. And we're also teaching manners because that's a thank you note. That's something that people don't think about. If you want to see them all, they're right here.
Very good.
Great. Any other questions? All right. It'll be presented first reading in next month.
Thank you, Sandy. Budget review time.
Dr. Deichel.
Okay, pull that one up. Oh, God, I gotta look closer.
Oh, no, you gotta
Can't
roll
see.
this out.
It gets blurry.
Just for December.
No.
Basically, in the general fund, you can see we collected $62.9 million in state support. $2.4 million right below that is full-day kindergarten. So we actually ended funding our budget. We were actually about $200,000 under funding our budget for 2012, which is great. So we actually had $66.6 million versus $66.8 million is what we were projecting. When you look, okay, I'll go down a little bit. When you look at the various expenditures, it shows up about $72 million. That includes the interfund loans, the tax anticipation loans. So we actually ended calendar year 2013 with $1,450,000. And then in January, we moved some of that money over to the rainy day fund. We did that last year. So general fund, we did good. Better than what we anticipated. But don't forget, we also moved $2.3 million into the rainy day fund. That was a big help. In debt service, basically you'll only see this 4 times a year.
This is a rainy day fund.
Oh, rainy day fund, okay. So you can see that we have $1.6 million left in the rainy day fund. $1,600,383. There's really nothing there. The activity will be in January for that one. Debt service. Debt service, we make payments January and July or June and December for our holding corporation. So you can see we actually collected $10,600,000
Tom, just hang on for 1 minute. I think board, again, as you look at this, I know there are a lot of numbers. I know we have to blow it up, and I know maybe we can look for a better way to show you all this information, but I think it's important for everyone to note that, you compare the actual dollars on the left-hand side versus budget on the right. And I think that's really important that we take a look at where we come in, both revenue and expenditures relative to budget. And that's why I think, and Tom's doing a really good job here in presenting this information, but we want to see just how accurate our financial status is related to from actual to budget. And that's why it's set up this way. Thanks.
Again, property taxes budgeted 4.486, collected 4,176,000, 310,000 off. Again, collected more excise. You'll see that throughout all the basic funds. The other CVET financial institutions tax came in right on line. When you look at the expenditures, we spent 4,470,000, so we are actually about 260,000 in cash balance is what we ended that year with, just on that alone. But then the actual cash balance, because we had a carryover from the prior year, we actually ended with 587. So that was pretty good. I was happy with that. And again, this fund will be hit more so in 13 than what it was in 12 because of the tax cuts. The last one is bus replacement. This pays for our buses and our contracted drivers. Again, we budgeted 1,115,000. We collected 1,037,000 in property. We got more in excise, and the other two are right on line. So we actually collected 1,170,000 versus 1,226,000. We actually spent 931, so we were still 200,000 under, which is still good, but we moved some of this money also out of this fund to the rainy day fund. If we don't, the state will use it to fund next year's budget. So we have to pull out this money as quickly as possible to push it to the rainy day fund. So that's kind of our analysis. So far we're doing pretty good. But 13 is going to be a tough year for us as far as the general fund goes, because of the cuts that we're going to have to make. We're only going to see September, August through December is all we're going to see in any cuts that we make in staffing or any retirements, things of that nature. So we're trying everything we can to reduce costs in other areas too.
I do have a question for you, Dr. Dykle. Also, when we met with our legislators, they did confirm the 2 ADM counts, September and February, and how that's going to affect us. How do we pre-plan for that?
What we're being told from the business side is the February one is not going to affect us right now, but be ready. It'll be affecting us in the future. It could help. It could also hurt. It depends on which way the school corporation goes. If you get a lot of kids that come in after the ADM count, the second cycle in September, that could help you. If you have a lot of kids that graduate mid-year, that could hurt you. So it just depends. I mean, we're losing 100 kids. I don't know how many kids come in after our official ADM count date to see if that would help us. And then you have to subtract the kids that graduate mid-year. So, maybe the board would look at a policy saying you have to have so many credits or you can't graduate mid-year. That's not right on my side. I mean, I would love to see that so we don't lose the money, because they'll take it away then on that February count. They won't take it away until August through December. So I just look at the month piece of the account.
And remember, the February count will determine your revenue for the last half of the year.
Correct.
Your September account is for the first half of the year. So we have a lot of mobility. A lot of school systems do have a lot of mobility, kids coming and going. And so it just really will be interesting to see how that translates for us. But Dr. Dykle makes a good point that it seems to me that you should not be penalized for seniors graduating early. And that's something I think we need to talk to our legislators about, that if you remember, there have been efforts in the past to encourage students to graduate early. There are students who that's a good decision on their part to graduate early, to go out and make more money before they go to college, or to start their college career early. To me, that's a positive thing. We should not be penalized for losing seniors who graduate from high school. So that's something we need to advocate for. But we'll see how that pans out when this kicks in.
Dr. Dyko, how easy is that to forecast how many are going to, leave early year over year? I mean, is that a pretty stable number, or is it all over the place?
I don't know. I'd have to look at each of the high schools and see what they've graduated mid-year over the last, say, 3 to 5 years. Try to get a number as far as that goes, a trend, and then look at how many kids come in after our September count and see what the net effect is. Net effect is we're losing 100 kids from September to September, but what are we getting in between? I mean, are we actually gaining kids in between and then losing them? I mean, I don't know. I'd have to do an analysis and see. Yeah. I think what we ought to do is just redshirt every freshman, have a 5-year program.
There you go.
Oh, my.
Just think of how much money we'd have. I'm only joking. Don't write that in the paper. Greater Clark demands 5 years.
Oh, my God.
It just seems like, it's a shell game almost, because, I mean, we have to advertise our whole annual year budget almost a year ahead of time, and then I mean, our fiscal year is different from there. It's just crazy. I don't envy you at all.
And then is it going to affect special ed next? Because right now, I mean, we have our regular count second Friday in September, and then we have our special ed count December 1 or whatever day that falls on. Are they going to do another special ed count, to coincide in February with regular ed? I mean, special ed, that's big bucks when you're looking at some of those kids who are severely handicapped, or over $7,000 a student that we're getting. If those kids leave, transfer, or whatever, we're still getting the money for them. That could be something else that they would look at next.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions on fund monitoring?
Questions?
Thank you. Safety update.
Well, as you know, Board, I'm very proud of our school system's response to what occurred, unfortunately, in Connecticut in December. I'm very proud of our staff, and I'm very proud of local law enforcement and fire officials for their commitment. We've had a lot of meetings, and Mr. Hare has been a leader in helping us coordinate our efforts. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Hare.
Thank you, Dr. Mellon and Board. We'd start out a little bit. We've received a lot of press over the last few weeks about what we're doing with school safety. We've been on all 4 news stations and a lot of the newspapers. And Jared, as a matter of fact, went on the intruder drill with me. And so we thought we'd start with a couple of clips. So just bear with us. These are about 30-second clips. We'll just kind of update everybody.
Thank you. Security changes are being made to all Greater Clark County, Indiana schools in the wake of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings last week.
You need to notify your child's school if you plan to visit the school during the day, and may be asked to present identification to access the building.
Starting January 7th, when students return from winter break, Greater Clark County schools will be adding more surveillance to campuses and restricting people's access to student areas.
Outside. We want our students and our staff and our parents to know that we're 100% committed to doing everything in our power to make sure that our school buildings are as safe as possible.
A local school district has heard the concern from parents, students, and the community about security. It's been a huge topic in light of the tragedy in Connecticut. While many schools in the area are reviewing their security measures, one system is already making changes. Well, I'm outside of Maple Elementary here in Jeffersonville, where I'm in front of a security camera that's posted on the outside of the wall. Today, it has caused a little bit of confusion for some parents, but they say that's okay if it means safety for their kids.
Are we prepared? What is it that we can do to better protect our students in our schools? Is there anything we can be doing better?
From that question came new ideas for Greater Clark County schools, and they've already gone into effect.
New school safety procedures in the wake of the Connecticut elementary school shooting are coming here to Kentuckiana. The Greater Clark County, Indiana school system is rolling out new rules parents need to be aware of coming up on Monday.
Most notably, video buzzer systems have been installed at Utica Elementary and the 14 other campuses that didn't have them before.
We will have our folks trained to be watching for, any suspicious activity.
Assistant Superintendent Travis Hare says the district's also continuing training on what to do if an intruder makes it inside. Wednesday, they'll have a district-wide intruder drill. But the key is to prepare teachers for more complicated scenarios.
If a fire alarm were to go off as we're doing an intruder drill, do you do the intruder drill or do you do a fire drill?
Those were just some of the clips that we had, and there were several to pick from. It wasn't that we wanted to see ourselves. There were just several there to pick from. I don't know if you saw this. It says this is the new normal. If an attacker has a 30-round magazine, how many good guys with pump-action shotguns will it take to stop him? And that's kind of, unfortunately, the new normal. Now, if we were sitting here with law enforcement, they would tell you just one. So they made that very clear to us. Prior to December the 15th, just to update the board, I want you to know we did take, obviously, school safety very seriously. We had district crisis. We have a district crisis team. We had district plans. Each individual school had plans. You guys are familiar with the flip charts that we had. So we had a lot of things in place. As a matter of fact, on October the 1st of 2012, we had a school safety meeting where we reviewed 10 different items. But after Sandy Hook on December the 15th of 2012, it really changed the way the schools think. And I don't think it's unique to Greater Clark. I think it's really across the nation. So as we begin to kind of change or refocus or look at some different strategies, on the 17th of December, Dr. Mellon led, we brought all the administrators in and we kind of had a conversation. These were the items we talked about. We talked about facilities, the drills, counseling, communication, and partnerships. So what we did on that 17th meeting, what I want to do is kind of review. We talked about what were some immediate steps. And we talked about immediate things that we could do and then long-term projects that we needed to do. So some of our immediate steps that we talked about were that all classroom doors would be locked while teachers were teaching. We would work as a district to restrict access. Those are with the access cards. Those are with the keys. And they're also with the additional A-phones that we had. And then we talked about exterior doors not being open. On the 17th, we talked to our principals about going back and making sure that those plans are reviewed. We talked about discussing alternate routes. If you're having a fire drill, sometimes you block off a certain entrance so that kids and teachers know that this is not the only way out. If I'm blocked here, I can turn and here's an alternate route. To talk about those different types of activities. To talk about intruder drills and active shooter drills. And then we challenged them to go back and talk about red cards and green cards. And red cards and green cards, there's a system that we're working with them, and we're working with local law enforcement. Depending on a certain situation, if we're on a fire drill and the teacher walks their kids out to the side and all of their kids are present, they can hold up a green card. So you can, at a school the size of Jeffersonville, you could look down there and see 15, 20 green cards and know that all those kids are accounted for. But if you've got one red card that's in the way, then you know, okay, what's going on there? Maybe they're missing a student, maybe a student's injured. So we talked about some different systems that we could do. And we also told them that over the break, we were going to be meeting with law enforcement on January the 3rd. We asked our principals to send us issues that they were concerned about. One of them we talked about, like the fire drill, what to do when kids are at recess, what to do when they're in the cafeteria, what do you do when it's morning assembly, what do you do if it's grandparents' day. So they sent us a lot of different scenarios and kind of asked us what to do. So there were about 15 to start with, and you'll see where we ended up. But that was just kind of that 2 days later, here were some questions that already started to surface. On the 19th, I sent a memo to all of our principals with those immediate directives that doors were to be locked while teaching was occurring, that all exterior doors were to be locked, that students should not pop doors open, students should not be opening doors for people. I also let everyone know that on the 9th we would have a corporation-wide intruder drill. They could do it at different times, but that we were all going to do it on the same day. We sent out a school messenger to the parents and put it in the press discussing it in the Parent Connect to let our parents know that that was going to be a day. And, we decided to start off, go ahead and announce it and let's see where we're at. And we're really pleased, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with those efforts. I also told them that we would be having upgrades done over the break, and that we would do a tabletop exercise, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, what that is. On the 10th, that was when we had a principals meeting. On January the 3rd, we met with local law enforcement. We had the Jeff Police Department, Fire Department, and Clark County Sheriff's Office. We had also reached out to Charlestown and Clarksville, and I'll be honest with you, it's just one of those things, we hadn't had great communication, but since this, we have excellent communication now. We have had a meeting with Charlestown City Police. We've reached out to Clarksville, and they've responded very well to us. So we're starting to really make some inroads with all of our different agencies. And at that meeting, we discussed the A-phones, and the A-phones that's that camera system that you saw when a parent comes in and they buzz in that camera. We talked about installing those A-phones, but then the protocol. The person that answers that, they unlock that door. And we talked about you can't just unlock the door and then go make 30 copies. You have to lock that door and make sure that person comes into the front office and that they don't go somewhere else. We also developed protocols. It's interesting, Steve Hobgood put all of the A-phones in, or had a company put them in. I said, Steve, see if they have protocol. What to look for? What kind of questions do you ask? And they didn't have protocol, so we developed our own protocol to help those folks that are using the A-phones. Hello, how may I help you? Do you have an appointment? And then to look for signs. Are they upset? Are they pacing? Are they verbally aggressing? Are they using cuss words? Do they have a hood up? Do they have long coats? To look for all these verbal cues and to make better decisions. And if it's something that you don't feel safe letting them in, you don't let them in. So there was some training and some protocol that we had to do because we put 15 of those A-phones in over the 15 different schools. We had always had a district or a corporation crisis team, but I told everybody not to get hung up on the words, but we have a safety team. Steve Hobgood, Chris Ralston, myself, and then Gary Green. We're sending a lot of information out, but it really wasn't cohesive. It wasn't coming from one source. So we together will make a team, and folks will be able to get direction from just one group. And then we talked about safety assessments. And also in that meeting, we probably spent the better part of the 3.5 hours just talking about situations. And what do you do if this is the situation? What do you do if that's the situation? And the thing that we've told the principals is you'll have what we're going to do. We're going to give you A, B, C, D, and E. But really, you're going to have to decide. Do I go A to E? Do I do E to C? We want to give as many different tools as we can. But in the situation where it's something where actually to happen, you're going to have to make those determinations. So again, it's just exposing them to that there are different situations, and there are different things that they can do depending on each situation. On January the 9th, I mentioned the intruder drill. We had that corporation-wide. At every one of our schools, we either had a central office person or someone from local law enforcement to observe those intruder drills. In many places, we had both a central office and law enforcement. Those went extremely well. We had it was so good of law enforcement. They gave us a debriefing of each one of our schools. We've got a packet of the things they saw that they liked, some things for us to work on, and that went really well. On the 10th, we had our principals meeting. We debriefed the intruder drills. We talked about those A-phone protocols, and then we did a tabletop with law enforcement. What is a tabletop exercise? Basically, what we do is a PowerPoint, and you have a scenario. So we had a scenario that it's at lunchtime, and then you just you put a T on there, and it shows you the real time. So the next slide says T2. So 2 minutes later, you hear glass breaking in the cafeteria or in a classroom. What do you do? And we had 3 principals, and we kind of put them in the hot seat and said, okay, what would you do in your building? What would you do in your building? And then the other principals were working kind of in groups behind them. And it works all the way through a scenario. In this particular scenario, a person came in with a baseball bat and struck a teacher and a student. So, originally you hear glass breaking. People were thinking, okay, there's a weapon, there are guns, but it ended up being a baseball bat. So we kind of threw them some twists and curves. At one point during that tabletop exercise, the police get there and fire department gets there. We probably had 15 or 16 folks from law enforcement and fire department, and they were able to tell our principals, when we arrive on the scene, here's what we need. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what the fire department's going to do. Here's how we're going to stage. Don't be surprised if we come in with our guns drawn. so those were it was some realistic stuff and scenarios that we put into place and worked on that. And then, in addition, we went over a question and answer. And what we did, we took all of those scenarios and we were able to we had 21 questions or scenarios that our principals had, and we provided them with the answers. And you will find oftentimes once you provide them with the answers, it's another question. What if this? And what if, because the variables can change, and you can't write a statement that addresses all the situations, but it's getting them to think about those types of things. And we told them, if you're standing there doing lunch duty, think to yourself, what would I do if something happened right now? What would you do? Where are your exits? Where would you be? So really, it's just kind of keeping those things fresh in their minds. We've had additional meetings since then. We had, I thought, a very productive meeting with the Jeffersonville City Council, and members of the school board were there. I thought it was a good meeting. Dr. Mellon and I met with the Charlestown mayor and the Charlestown Police Department, and it was a very productive meeting last week. So again, great commitments from all of our outside agencies. We've kind of looked at some future actions and our recommendations. Each school, we're going to ask them to have 2 more intruder drills between now and the time school lets out. And during those drills, we're going to have law enforcement go in and really critique or maybe throw them a curve. Some of them will be unannounced. We may say we're going to do an intruder drill this week, but it won't be a particular day to see how people react when they don't know that it's coming. So we're going to do some things like that. Steve Hobgood and Chris Ralston are going to be going around doing safety assessments of each building. What are our immediate needs in our buildings? What are long-term needs? We will continue to do tabletops or scenarios with our principals at the principals meetings. We will continue to have our safety team meetings. One of the things that we're going to do is really, I think we're the common denominator. When you start talking about Jeffersonville Police, Jeffersonville Fire, Charlestown Police, Clarksville Police, the sheriff, we're the common denominator. They all work with us, so it probably makes sense for us to kind of grab that bull by the horn and get them all together and kind of have a county-wide safety team, if you will. And we're going to work on identifying who those stakeholders are. I think at a minimum we would have quarterly meetings with them. There are some drills they want to do. We had some good conversation at the city council meeting. They have some trailers with equipment. We have some trailers with equipment, but we don't know who has what. So just an opportunity to kind of compare notes and talk about that. And then the other thing that we've been talking about is really transportation drills. That's something that we don't do. But if a bus were to be taken hostage, or if there were to be some type of shooter on a bus, what do we do with those situations, and how do we train our bus drivers and kids on the bus? That's probably something that we don't do, and we definitely need to get a hold of that. So it has been fast and furious since December 15th, but certainly have not done it alone. The cabinet, our law enforcement, Chris Ralston, Gary Green, Steve Hobgood, everyone's done a tremendous job. To get those A-phones installed in 15 buildings over the break was just outstanding work with Steve Hobgood. He did it, if you'll remember, as he was moving the alternative school for us for the middle school. So it was a busy couple weeks for those guys, but they did a great job, and certainly we'll take any questions. But just kind of wanted to update the board on what we've been doing in the last month, especially as it relates to school safety.
I, for one, just want to say thank you very, very much for everything you're doing and that you will do, and for updating us. So, we're all concerned, and
sure,
we all want to know where we are, and opportunities like this are
sure,
great. So
sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Travis, there was some talk at one point in time about having remote access to the camera systems by law enforcement, or have we done anything with that? Or
Mr. Pavey, we have certainly had that conversation, and it's something that is on our radar. We believe it's something that we can do pretty easily. We have not done it yet, but it is something that we're definitely looking into and feel like we can do. And I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Okay.
Another thing they talked about at that meeting was, could they have a laminate a floor plan? And that makes sense because, we can pull out a laminate and they can take and mark on a dry erase, so to have all that equipment there as well. So we talked about a lot of those different things, and it's just a matter of getting them into place.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We kind of try to prioritize things. They said the first thing we want when we arrive on the scene is to see that janitor or somebody that knows where the cutoffs are for this or that. And so we want to make sure we get all that into place. And they said then our next group of officers will need those cameras, so we've got to get that in place. So we're trying to prioritize and kind of take law enforcement's directions and get what they need and get that done first, and then not that it's secondary, but just to try to get it all done, just to try to prioritize it. Right. So, but it is something I think we can certainly, will be able to accomplish. I would think by the end of the year for sure, if not
Absolutely.
sooner.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way, I had that happen on my bus, and I did not have any training. But, just at the spur of the moment, the person was there with the gun, I just had everybody get down and then just gunned us and just took off a cut. Now, is that what we're gonna tell, right now before because we haven't investigated and we haven't perfected it, but isn't that the best way
Well,
right now?
I think that's what we've been talking to our principals and unfortunately our teachers about. Those are the decisions that they're going to have to make on a split decision.
Right.
What we want to do is say, yeah, you can close the door, tell everybody get down and gun it, but you can also do this or do that.
Yeah.
Especially at some of our buildings, teachers are going to have to make decisions. Do we run outside? Do we stay inside? Where do we stay safe?
But bus drivers don't have that
No,
option.
they don't. They don't.
have
And
many
they don't.
options.
And I don't know if some of them jump. Those are the situations we've got to talk through and make sure we've got that training.
And one of the things too, I think is important with Gary Green, our new director of transportation. He's got a lot of background in those safety pieces, and so we've started the conversation with him because we need to figure out what is that training that bus drivers need immediately to maximize safety. So it is our hope that Mr. Green will be able to develop some protocols for bus drivers, just like we did at a building level. Here are some quick priorities that you need to keep in mind to do these things as soon as it happens. So we're hoping that he'll play a key role in that.
It's a tough place to be.
It's an extremely tough place to be, yes, ma'am.
I really appreciate what Travis has done and what we're looking at. No matter what you do with all these scenarios and with all the cameras, to me it goes back to how do you stop a bad guy with a bullet with a good guy with a bullet? And I think getting more police officers in our buildings with the funding, and we spoke about that at the meeting with the Jeffersonville mayor and the councilman. I think officers in the building, it should be top priority. All the cameras are great, protocols great, scenarios are great, but an officer in the building that knows the kids, knows the community, knows the setup would be very beneficial.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, one of the things that we, in our conversation with the Charlestown mayor and the police chief and assistant chief up there, we talked about expanding our SROs, our resource officers, to at least Charlestown Middle School. So then you'd have an officer at Charlestown High School with Pleasant Ridge right next door. Then you have another officer at Charlestown Middle School. Jonathan Jennings is a little bit further away, but and they're very interested in making that happen. So we're looking at what are the financial considerations there. They've given us some cost factors. Do we go 50-50 on that? We hope that we would get state funding from the legislature, but the way I think we should be moving forward is how do we sustain that if we don't have state funding? Because we don't want to commit to hiring people and then from year to year, be sort of held hostage in that way. So the mayor and I talked about this fact that if we went 50-50, can we make it happen? And then if we do get money from the state, that helps us out for that given year. And then also here in Jeffersonville, as you remember, we talked about the need for more SROs here in the Jeffersonville area too. New Washington, we need an officer up there on Fridays. That's not currently the case. He's there 4 days a week. So I think there's some things, quick fixes, that we can help ourselves relatively quickly. One of the other issues at Charlestown, was the fact that getting an officer hired and trained and ready to go. Because that was part of their issue, is how quickly could they get someone ready to go, and I think August was the absolute earliest from that perspective. But we're working, and we've got great people in our community that are doing all the right things.
So you would still be married to that idea that they would still be obligated, even though you got state funding, because you don't know if you're getting state funding the next year either. So you would always be married to that.
Right.
It would happen.
We need to build a budget with the idea in mind that if we believe in SROs, it's like any other priority we have in our school system. If technology is a priority, then as you're building your budget, how much is it going to cost you to do what you think you need to do? Same thing with safety. If we believe more SROs are necessary, then what's that going to cost? Do we pay for it all? Does another entity pay for 50% of it? But what will it be that we could sustain it over time?
IT/safety.
Yeah.
Go get some certifications, Rusty.
Yeah.
Any other discussion or questions for Travis? Okay. Well, no, we don't have any public comments on non-agenda, so we're to board comments. Mr. Hall, you have anything?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to a young teacher, Nicole Morrison, who's back teaching at Charlestown High School. She was a student at Charlestown when I taught there, and then she came back and worked to get through school and became a teacher there, and wish her all the best, and I'm proud that she's back after that crazy accident that she had last year. So shout out to Nicole.
Can't top that.
Sherry, you have anything? Mrs. Kraft?
That's the best.
Yeah. Mr. Pavey?
I agree. So.
Well, I agree, but I do want to give another shout out to Major Glenn Jackson and Deputy Chief Bruce DeArc. On Friday, the 16th of December, I think it was the day after Connecticut, or the day of, it's fuzzy. I just happened to be working in the city doing an AFLAC enrollment, and they both came to me and said, we need to talk. We need to have meetings with your administration. We need to make sure our kids are safe. And immediately, like, that was a Friday, the next Monday, they were meeting. And so, you know, I've said all along, it takes collaboration, communication, all of us working together for the betterment of our kids. And I just want to give a shout out to them for coming to me versus us having to seek them out. It just shows that they truly care and have a passion for our kids, and that's important. So that's all I've got. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, Dr. Mellon.
2 comments.
I'm sorry. Dr. Mellon.
You just can't let it go. I need to say a couple things.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Real quickly, Martin Luther King observances in our schools, just outstanding work on the part of our staff and our students to recognize that important day. And the students, we had a Martin Luther King breakfast at Jeffersonville High School, and we had a chance to recognize students for all the great things that they were doing and how they were recognizing the day. And again, it just sort of puts it all in perspective as to you know, why we exist as educators. The other thing is some good news. Just, you know, dual credit has been something that we've really been working on to expand, and we've signed agreements with Ivy Tech. They are the facilitator for dual credit in the state of Indiana. New Washington has 8 dual credit courses currently. Charlestown High School has 19, and Jeffersonville High School has 25 dual credit courses ranging, you know, throughout the curriculum. And these are courses in which students are getting high school credits as well as college credits. Those college credits are good at any Indiana public university or college. There's no cost to those credits, and those courses are being taught by our teachers who have been accredited to teach those courses. And so a lot of work was done on the part of a lot of people behind the scenes. Joe Wayne from Ivy Tech is their point person, and many of you know Joe used to work here for us. I think he was assistant superintendent even at one point. And then Amy Schellenberg has been our point person here at the central office level. Our teachers took this on very quickly. That, you know, we're already teaching our classes in these high schools, and they're coming together and making it happen for kids. So a tremendous effort there to help kids. The goal would be for students before they graduate from Greater Clark one day to have at least 12 to 15 college credits that they walk out the door with. That will be our goal moving forward, and I think we're moving in that direction. So appreciate the work that our people are doing there. That's it. Thank you.
And you reminded me that I was going to give you a shout out because Dr. Mellon was our keynote speaker at the Martin Luther King breakfast. So great job being invited to do that.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Kraft, is there a second? Mr. Hall? All in favor?